I tracked every single penny that I spent on a £110,000 salary in London for a full year. I'm not going to bore you with every single line item, but I'm going to share the main takeaways, surprises, and systems that I wish I had before and that I'm going to share with you now. So if you earn a high salary but you feel like your money doesn't last you long enough, then this video is for you. Before we get into it, hi, my name is Francesca. I'm a vice president working in a multinational company. I'm 30 years old, just turned, and I earn six figures. I've been earning six figures for a couple of years, and I love to talk about personal finance, investing, optimizing for your future. So this is what this experiment that I did. And to be honest, I've been tracking every single penny that I spent for the past 6 years now. But I've never done that on a six-figure salary before. So it was very revelatory to see what the main line items were, what changed from past years, and things that are risks that you should really be aware of if you're in a high bracket, but you feel like your money doesn't stretch as far as it should be stretching. Now, before we begin, of course, a disclaimer. I am single. I live in London. I know this is a very privileged salary to be talking about, so I definitely don't want this to come across as me complaining or saying, oh, it's not enough money. But there are some realities of earning a high wage that doesn't make you feel rich yet. It's called Henry's, high earners not rich yet. That we should all be aware of. And these are systems that are practically applicable to everyone, regardless of income that you find yourself in. So the first takeaway or the first reality of tracking every penny on this salary in London is that tax is really the first thing you should always account for. I know this is not revelatory, this is not something necessarily new, but it's something that, especially once you get to some higher tax earning brackets, can really sneak up on you. And if you don't pay attention, you may lose the subtleties of your income and your position. So for people earning between 100 and 125k a year, there is an amount of 60% on that earned income, so those 25k, because you effectively start losing your personal allowance, your tax-free personal allowance, which is £12,570 per year. So this is something that you need to check for yourself. And one thing that has helped me kind of even prepare for this before the tax actually hit me was to use a salary calculator. I'll leave a link below to the one that I use, because it kind of helped me play a more offensive game as opposed to defensive. What I mean by that is a lot of people, get their first paycheck on a new salary, not even really knowing how much money will hit their bank account, and kind of them being surprised, be like, oh, wow, okay, I thought I would earn less, I thought I would earn more, or whatever else is the case. What I've always done, and what I've done especially when entering these higher earning tax brackets, is playing the offensive game. So before I actually got the raise, preparing myself and playing around with the different salary sacrifice options. For example, if there's anything that I can salary sacrifice more into, a pension, a gym membership, and whatever, and see how that affects my effective take-home pay, and if I'm happy with that amount. So the main takeaway is know your taxes inside out, play the offensive, and don't wait until you get the paycheck to be surprised by how much money you earn. And number two, the second real takeaway is that, and again, not surprising for everyone, but rent is basically another tax in London, and it's a very hefty tax at that. So for me, I live alone, which is a very privileged position to be in London. I'm very aware. The thing that I've done right, I think, in this sense, is I actually could have afforded to live alone way sooner, probably, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago even, if I wanted to, and if I'd been willing to spend, let's say, 60-70% of my net income, on rent. And I know people that do it, and I know people that for whom this is worth it. For me, though, what I've done is I've waited until my rent payments would take up no more than 25% of my net income post-tax, in order for me to feel comfortable, kind of wanted to go ahead and being able to do that. So instead of tying how much I want to pay to a set number, I made that a percentage-based income, and so they're always a percentage-based amount, and that helped me understand when the right time was. And it's something that I say for every single expense. This is the best way to make sure that lifestyle inflation doesn't creep in, and that you're also investing not below your means, but you're actually investing the right amount each time, because it can also work the other way, right? Let's say you decide that, okay, I'm going to invest £1,000 a month. What happens when your salary increases and you could actually afford to invest more, right? Like if you've only decided that you're going to invest £1,000 and that's always what you're going to be doing, then this is not going to adapt to your higher means of living. So definitely always recommend budgeting with percentage base. There's a lot of predetermined fixed taxes and bills in the UK. So council tax, your phone bill, your internet, your water, whatever. Most of these, yes, are usage based, but also there is going to be normally a baseline spend that you're going to be having every single month. And I was actually so surprised to see how much they added up. I now know exactly how much I spend on my bills, and it's on upwards of £250 per month. Now, this is also the tax of living alone, and it's no surprise and it's no secret that if you live in a couple, as a couple, this significantly impacts positively how much you're able to save, because all of that is divided by two, so it's much more affordable to live. But basically, the thing for me is I now have a quarterly audit of all my bills, including things that probably have like a 12-month contract in them, because one, at least I am aware of them and when the expiry date approaches, but two, sometimes you can even negotiate them down by threatening to leave as soon as the renewal comes up. So this has really helped me, and also really assessing what are the things that I genuinely care about. And sometimes, for example, I've now invested in a personal finance program myself, because I think that if you want to teach that to others, you need to keep sharpening the tools in your toolbox. And I, at first, when they proposed to me what the membership would be like is £86, I was like, okay, well, that's pretty hefty. But then I annualized it. I was like, okay, well, to 86 and 12, that's £1,000 for me. I know that, for example, I've spent as much, if not more, on materialistic things. So the annualized value was actually eye-opening for me and made me realize, wow, yes, it feels like I'm adding a lot by saying £86 per month, but actually in its totality, it's an investment that I think is worth it. And especially when I compare it to things that I spent money on, maybe not on a whim, but like on a one-off, as a treat myself and whatever, and didn't add anything in terms of personal growth and development to myself. So make a habit of quarterly rechecking your bills and renegotiating where it makes sense, and also try and annualize how much you're spending, because often is going to give you a different view of how much it actually is in money amount. And sometimes that could be the opposite result. Sometimes maybe you say it's a £50 monthly subscription, right? But then you annualize it and it's £600, and you realize, wait, I don't want to spend £600 on this thing, alone. So try and play this game, and it's something that I've always done, and it's really helped me kind of put things into perspective. One other thing that I've realized, and again, it's no surprise if you live in London, if you visit London, if you've been around, but transport really also does add up quite a lot. And one thing that I started to do differently this past year and now in 2026 as well is dividing or like splitting up my non-negotiable transfer modality. So that's tube, mainly tube, because I have to get to work, right? So tube and bus. From my Ubers, my Bolts, so the more leisure, the more luxuries, the nice treat myself type of expenses. Because in 2025, I actually kept them bundled together, and so that number got inflated quite a lot, and I didn't like that I wasn't able to just split the difference and see how much was actually money that I had to spend because I have to go to work, as opposed to treat myself and nice teas and things that I can cut down on if I want to. So it's definitely changed my approach to money. Now, there is also something that we said about being safe and secure and wanting, for example, to go home safe. And this is especially the case if you're a woman, single woman that wants to get home at 3 a.m., let's say after drinks out, you may want to default to taking an Uber instead. That's fine. I don't think it's a nice to have in that case, but still, at least having that visibility, it's great, because I did realize that in some months I actually spend as much in Ubers as I did in my my tube commute, which is not what I want to be spending. So it's very good. And of course, sometimes you have to optimize between or choose between time. Next up is all the little treats that you give yourself, which, by the way, you should definitely continue doing. I'm not saying here, oh, you shouldn't buy, the matcha is the classic example, or the avocado toast. Like, if we didn't buy avocado toast, we could all buy home, right? That's what boomers think. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is the beauty of tracking all these little treats is that you can see how much you're actually spending, right? It sounds very simple, but I know that the temptation is there to, you're just spending, let's say, £3.50 at Greg's on some sausage rolls, whatever. You might think, oh, it's only £3.50. I'm not gonna bother putting that in my tracker. I'm not gonna bother registering that in my Notion template or whatever because it's so small. If that happens, let's say every day, like you're spending that every day is like what, 20 plus pounds per week. You do that every week, that's what, 80, almost £100, right? So that does add up quite quickly. So I really encourage you to, even when it's these nice little treats, to still treat them as line items and still add them to your budget tracker. Not because you have to necessarily reduce how much you're spending, but at least that you need to know how much you're spending on these, and then you can make a decision. People always make the mistake of assuming that budgeting means restricting necessarily. No, it does not. Budgeting means knowing where your money is going in premise. So first of all, and then based on that, you can then decide, hey, am I happy where my money is going, or do I want to come back and decide that I want it to go into something else first before it goes to my Greg sausage roll. So definitely that was my main takeaway, and something that I've been very good at doing, honestly, for the past 5 to 6 years. And especially when jumping on a higher salary, the temptation is there to start treating these smaller items as non-consequential, so just like not registering them anymore. But I really urge you guys to continue doing that because it does add up, and it's important that you know where your money is going. Second to last point is that I saw a trend that, especially with a higher income, I was more prone to shopping and buying treats. So not the nice little treats, which can be like a coffee or so, but a nicer bag or a facial or massage or whatever, to and use them as some sort of therapy, right? So something to help me, let's say, if I was stressed, if I was a bit sad, if something bad happened, if I had a stressful week. So there is a tendency when you earn more money to do things just because you can. And there's nothing more dangerous than starting to buy things because you can. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that goes for everything in life, not only expenses, but also things that you do. Just because you can move to Australia doesn't mean you should. Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. So there's a lot of things that we do just because you can. And for me, the trend that I saw last year was that I started doing a lot of things because I could with this new money that I found. And that's fine, but it's sometimes that did spiral and sometimes that did go out of control. So the rule that I made for myself for this year is that for any purchase that is above 40, 45 pounds, I wait 48 hours and I will normally take a picture of the item. Let's say it's a clothing item or like a physical item that I want to buy. I will take a picture. I have a folder called Wants. And then I'll just put it there. Normally, I give myself at least 48 hours, but sometimes that ends up being longer, right? Because let's say it's the weekend and you then go to work and you don't have time to, let's say, go back shopping. So two days to a week, and then if I still want it, then I'll buy it, right? But at least what that does is taking away that impulse buying effect, that it's so easy and it's so tempting, and literally society is working at all times to make sure that we do cave in and we do give into pressure and we do give into temptation. So it's so important that you create friction for yourself, and that's why we go back to, you need to be budgeting. You need to physically be typing in what you spend, because that creates friction, that creates discomfort, as opposed to, oh, I'm just going to pay with my card and I'm going to check my statement, if I even check my statement, and I've done nothing in the meantime. So this was it for my my extra expenses, and it's a rule that has really worked well for me. Sometimes I've ended up buying the item with more conviction, right? So that's positive. Some of the times I've realized I don't actually want it, like, and it was more like an impulse buy, and I didn't actually need it, and happy days, that's fantastic. And one other thing that I've started doing, and I'm kind of backed in this for all of these extra expenses, the variable expenses, is after I've calculated what my average spending is per month on each non-essential expense, so that includes eating out, health type of stuff, like treatments, clothes, gifts, what have you. I have my average monthly amount spent per month. I've now, which adds up, to a certain number. I've now started automatically sending that amount of money to a separate bank account, so not my normal checking account where I get my paycheck, but it's a Revolut account, to use for these extra expenses, for these extra purchases. And what is so cool is that once that's done, once that money is done, that's it. I don't have any more money to spend on non-essential items. And so that is a very simple yet effective way to make sure that I stay within those boundaries that I've set for myself that I want to be spending on. So this was it. These were some of the main takeaways on living on a higher salary, and what some of the pitfalls are that you can fall into, and some of the tips and tricks that have helped me stay in check. The same goes for example, travel. Set up a bucket fund, like a sinking fund for travel. It's something that you want to be doing, so why not start saving a set amount every month for that, so that when you get to that point, it's going to be amazing and you already have the funds. If this is helpful, again, I'm going to include below the link to the tracker that I've used and the link to speaking with me if you'd like. And until next time, I'll see you then.